Yeah, it's Wednesday. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yay.
It's the meeting of the Metropolitan Council, February 14th. And I'll call this meeting to order, and we have a robust agenda of business items. And unless anybody has a suggested change, I will approve the agenda. I will take that the agenda is approved. And then on to our council minutes from the meeting on January 24th, 2024. And if there's any changes, questions, edits, otherwise I'd entertain a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Those minutes are approved. And at this time is our opportunity for interested parties to address the council, members of the public, on any issue not on the agenda. And I'm checking the long list. There are nobody on the list, so, and unless everybody's rushing to the podium, and I see nobody doing that, we will move on to the next item, which is our consent business agenda. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent business items?
Make a motion.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those consent business items were approved. On to the reports of the standing committee. And we start with the community development. Councilmember Lilligren.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Community Development Committee brings two items for our consideration this evening. The first is setting a public hearing, and that's business item 2024-25. It's a proposed plan modification for the City of North Oaks Red Forest Way South Comprehensive Plan Amendment. And again, we're just setting the public hearing tonight, but a little background. North Oaks submitted a comprehensive plan amendment for the council's review that proposes to expand the metropolitan urban service area and provide regional sanitary sewer to a new development. The proposed development consists of 23 parcels with 24 connections across 72.2 net acres. The proposed development is located in an area of the city with a community designation of rural residential, which does not allow for the provision of regional sewer services due to the development patterns or topographical constraints that, quote, do not support the economical extension of water services, end quote. The proposed amendment results in a net density for this development of 0.32 units per acre, which reduces the city's overall density from 3 units per acre to 2.3 units per acre. This low density, along with the lack of planned regional sewer service to this area and the inconsistency of the proposal with the emerging suburban edge community designation, makes this amendment more likely than not to represent a substantial departure from the Metropolitan Wastewater System Plan. As permitted by Minnesota State Statute 473.175 Subdivision 1, the council may require a local government to modify its comprehensive plan or part thereof that does not conform to a metropolitan systems plan if the council concludes that the local plan or plan amendment is more likely than not to have either a substantial impact on or to represent a substantial departure from the council's adopted policy plans and capital budgets for a metropolitan system. The plan modification process is outlined in law and requires specific steps to be taken. The action before the council today is to take the first step and to establish a public hearing date on this item. A more detailed schedule of the next steps is shown on page 3 of the business item online. So, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council establish a date to conduct a public hearing to discuss and receive comment on a proposed plan modification for the City of North Oaks Red Forest Way South Comprehensive Plan Amendment. And the hearing will take place at the Community Development Committee meeting on Monday, March 4th, 2024 at 4 p.m.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? That motion Carried. Councilmember Bethany.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. The next item is item 2023-48, and it's to approve the 2023 Livable Communities Act Fund Distribution Plan. The Livable Communities Act requires that the council prepare an annual plan for distribution of the Livable Communities funds that includes funding availability, program guidelines, and scoring criteria. The 2024, I'm sorry, I'm just confused. Do I have a typo here, or is this 2023? It's 2024. Thank you, all right.
41.
As it was coming out of my mouth, that's all right, okay.
Right.
All right, so this is actually 2024-41. Okay, thank you. I'll start again. So it's item 2024-41. It's approval of the 2024 Livable Communities Fund Distribution Plan. The 2024 Fund Distribution Plan proposes a total of $29 million in grant funds to be made available from the 2024 authorized budget and Livable Communities account reserve funds. Reserve accounts. That is broken up to $6 million for the tax-based revitalization account, including contamination cleanup, site investigations, and seeding equitable economic development grants. $20.5 million of the Livable Communities Demonstration Account, which includes pre-development, policy development, Livable Communities Demonstration Account development, and transit-oriented development, and homeownership grants, and also $2.5 million for the Local Housing Incentives Account for affordable multifamily grants. At the February 5th Community Development Committee meeting, committee members engaged in a discussion regarding distribution of funds, equity criteria, and program goals, especially for the LCDA and TOD accounts, resulting in an amendment to the motion to approve the plan. So, Mr. Chair, for the purpose of discussion, I'm going to move this committee action that came from the committee, although I do not intend to support it tonight. So, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council approve the 2024 Livable Communities Act Fund Distribution Plan as shown in Attachment 1 for the tax-based revitalization account and the local housing incentives accounts only, while pausing grants offered under the LCDA account.
All right, is there a second?
I move it for the purpose of the report.
Second.
Yes.
You moved it.
Second, I'm
All
sorry.
right, thank you, thank you. And at this point, we're going to have a discussion, but I understand we may have an amendment. Councilmember Johnson.
So, Mr. Chair, I just want to give background, and then I'm going to offer my amendment. So I am on the Community Development Committee. We had a very robust and I think a very good discussion at that meeting, and I was on the prevailing side of the motion that you have now before you for consideration. Since that meeting, I was contacted by Metro Cities, and I know that there were other cities that reached out as they were preparing to actually apply for rounds of grants this year. I spoke with Patty Nauman about the process, so they are really urging that we move forward with this. But the genesis, I think, of the discussion was very good, and that is that there is, I think, concern that we might have some geographic equity issues as it relates to suburban communities' ability to receive these awards. Additionally, we've gone from, I think our high mark was 119 participating in the Livable Communities Act program, and we're now down to 77. There was really good discussion by members talking about how difficult it is for certain communities, small communities, fully developed communities, with the restraints and constraints that they have as it relates to their own resources to be able to even apply and manage these grants. And so there was a lot of concern on the part of community members on how can we fix this, and can we fix it, in time for the 2025 round, which, by the way, there is planned to be a full review of this program in 2025. I think for some of us, there was significant enough concern where we thought, can we move forward with some of this, and can we then, in the interim, hold back money and move it into 2025? And so that is the prevailing side of the vote, and other people can certainly speak to that piece of it as well. And I will tell you my sentiments today have not moved from there. But with that said, I will offer an amendment so that we can move forward with all programming with the certainty that there has to be some workshopping and study this summer, even ahead of whatever revisions we were going to do in 2025. And I was, in my speaking with Patty Nauman, the executive director of Metro Cities, she is very much wanting to be a partnership in that and has said it's been a while since they've had really an LCA committee that's been formed to take a look at this. And she understands the concerns of the committee and embraces that. So as not to hold back funding this year, but with the promise that the CDC and everybody else really digs in on this and we get the data and the trends and the understanding of why we're going from 119 down to 77 and really get our arms around this in CDC so that when we move, and we want to be engaged in this process ourselves, not just staff and others, we just need to fully understand what is going on here. So that was a lot, but I wanted to give my colleagues on the CDC the opportunity to understand why I'm moving in a different direction for tonight's vote. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would move to amend the proposed action to read as follows. That the Metropolitan Council, 1, approve the 2024 Livable Communities Act Fund Distribution Plan for all LCA programs as shown in Attachment 1 of the staff report to the Community Development Committee, and 2, direct council staff to add the 2024 committee work plan to a council member engaged process for review in LCA programs to address the equity scoring criteria, geographic distribution of awards, and barriers to participation in the program.
Second.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
if I may, again, just briefly speak now to that
Sure.
amendment. I think there just really needs to be a recognition that this, at least in this amendment, is a pullback of what that committee did. I don't disagree with the discussion of that committee, but for me, moving forward and supporting this, there has to be a full-on effort to get our head around this, because for those of us that have been on Met Council for a while, and a couple of you who precede me, and even as a mayor and council member myself, this has always been a question that has been asked, and we see it over and over and over again. And we just need the data and understanding and what those barriers are and seeing the big picture. And we shouldn't rely on an astute council member who literally keeps track of all the data in her portfolio at every meeting and is able to bring that up to help us to understand where funds are being distributed. So thank you to Councilmember Wolf, because she is very astute on this issue. So with that, Mr. Chair, I offer this amendment in the spirit of friendliness to all those that were participating. And Mr. Chair, for clarification, this does include the staff recommendations that were made as they were working with, I think it was their review committees, to better come up with better, at least interim, better ways to meet out these programs. So that's important because it goes from the 2-step to the 1-step in this motion. And I just wanted, with all due respect, I know that was an issue for you, Councilmember Chambliss. I just wanted you to know that, that that's what this is.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. I'm going to hear from Chair Lilligren, who seconded the motion. We have an amendment on the floor, and we're discussing the amendment.
Thank you, Chair, and my thanks to Councilmember Johnson for bringing this forward, and to all the committee members. I thought we had very fulsome and robust debate, and the issues that Councilmember Johnson elevates and that the committee discussed are issues that we discuss a lot. They have to do with equity, geographic equity, race equity, income equity, and that's our work, right? That's the work of policymaking, to have these kinds of discussions. And I am supportive of the substitute motion, and I want to not just thank my fellow CDC members, but also our staff. And they listened to what we're saying, and they did bring some revisions forward based on conversations that we've had. And we were already planning to do a full review with revisions in advance of the 2025 Livable Communities grant session. So I look forward to having that conversation in an open and transparent way with CDC members and council members. And I suspect, and staff knows this, and it's included in the amended action that Councilmember Johnson's brought forward, that we will be doing that. And so I look forward to that conversation. And again, that's our work as policymakers. I also want to thank the cities, and several of them weighed in on this, both through written communication, emails, and phone calls and conversations, who made it clear that this was important to them to go forward this year. And we love our cities, and we want to support their visions for themselves with the resources that we have available. And the livable communities are not a huge amount of dollars when you look at sort of government and the need region-wide, but they're important dollars, and they're some of our most discretionary funds that we have here within the council. And so we do get to sort of touch the policies and programs, and I look forward to doing that and to supporting the cities throughout the region in realizing the visions that they have for themselves through the resources that we can provide them through livable communities. So I ask my colleagues to support this today, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know Councilmember Chambliss and then Councilmember Barber.
Thank you. I'm glad we're having the discussion. I believe in addressing whatever concerns that people have directly and thoroughly. I do want to make sure that we are true to what our regional development guides goals are. We are true to the statutes for LCA funds, the policies and programs that we have implemented. And those policies are very specific. So as we review the purpose of the programs that we are voting on today, I think that should be at the forefront. If we discover that there are some gaps in addressing regional needs, we can look at whether or not the LCA programs that we have in place are sufficient to address that, or we need some other programs that could better address things such as geographic equity. The discussions that we have between now and 2025, I think, will help us to have those discussions, and I think they are very important. As Councilmember Johnson said, I had some concerns about why we would move from a two-step to a one-step process, because I want to make sure that if we do changes, especially to an equity program, that we do no harm, and that if we, based on the explanation that I received about moving to the one-step process, I understood it to mean that more people wanted to weigh in on and make the final decisions about the results of the outcomes. And my concern was that that process may have more weight on a subjective process than the objective process, which was had components that were weighted more objectively in the first portion of the the first step, and the second step being more subjective. So those things I think we need to have a clarification on to make sure that we do no harm in achieving the outcomes that we want to achieve.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to provide a little framework around this, I really appreciate that, honestly, that the vote that was taken at Community Development so we could have this conversation. I will say I served on the last Livable Communities Committee with Metro Transit, and that was under the Dayton administration. And I can tell you that what we're asking for here is what was asked for then and has been continued to be asked for, because we relay a message that we're collecting regional dollars, but it's only getting distributed to certain parts of the region is really kind of what's happening. And so I really appreciate Councilmember Wolf and everyone bringing this, because I remember a few years ago when we had a presentation on livable communities and looking at the number of the cities that I represent that decided to opt out of the program. Some have come back, but a whole bunch of them are some of these smaller cities that don't see any value in it. And I can tell you, I do know that this is really important for cities, but I can tell you for my cities, they just want a seat at the table. So I'm glad we're doing this.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember Cedarburg, then Lindstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, council members. I may have a unique perspective, as I, in my previous career, wrote these grants. And I was very successful for numerous reasons. I was paid to write them. You know, the developers had a lot of money. Relationships go back years to the council and to the cities and to the staff. And absolutely, the programs are incredibly important. But when we got requests to assist smaller communities and smaller developers, the barriers for entry were huge. They didn't have the 1, 2, 3, 4-year relationships with council staff, city staff, program staff. They didn't have the money to, submit the applications, which are complex in the sense of understanding all the zoning and the financing that goes into it. So having that perspective, I agree with Councilman Barber that these were issues years and years ago that I could see coming up. So yes, I'll vote for this amendment, knowing that this will be looked at. And of course, if you want a perspective of somebody who knows the system, how to write the grants, please ask me and I can tell you, because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes in putting these grants together and being successful.
Right.
Thank you.
We have expertise here. Councilmember Lindstrom.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. My request to staff and Councilmember Lilligren is that the process itself be brought to the Community Development
Yes.
Committee before it starts rolling out, so that we know, and that everybody's on board with what the process looks like. What's the role of the housing work group? What's that going to be? Then we're going to have a half-day workshop with Dakota County CDA and Scott County and da-da-da-da-da, whatever it might be. But let's get that nailed down so that we don't, regret it when it all comes to us and be like, well, this is all, so that we have buy-in from everybody, Metro Cities included. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Right, Councilmember Johnson.
And if I may, Councilmember Lindstrom, and for the folks that were on the CD committee, that was one of the, as we were trying to figure out how can we do both at the same time, move forward on 2024 and try to get this all done. And my concern, and I could be right or wrong, was even just having the staff capacity to do the things you're talking about, because this is not going to be a simple process. If it does not come forward correctly, it won't have a good result next year from those of us who are trying to get through this issue that we're having. So I think from those of us on CDC that all of us want the process, all of us do want the process to be effective. But I think it will take a lift, because to the point that's been making, cities that no longer participate, why not? And cities that don't even try, why not? And cities that are eligible and should be doing it, at least for the purposes we believe, they aren't doing it. And I think we should really find out why that is, because there's a myriad of issues out there that are preventing or repelling cities from this program and working with us. So I couldn't agree with you more wholeheartedly. If we don't get at it this year and it comes in a fashion that can be supported robustly by the committee and this group, we've done something wrong, which is I think why there was great hesitancy at the CDC to just move forward, because we have to have that promise that vigorous process, that robust process with partners takes place, and we need to know how that's going to work and work ourselves backwards from when we announce it to, because digging into figuring some of this out is one thing. And I will say, I think rightfully so, it was mentioned at staff mentioned that, well, we can't compel cities to participate. We know that. We just need to figure out what's going on, because we're moving in the wrong direction. And pretty soon, I would imagine the legislature is going to start to go, hey, why is participation falling off, and what's going on? Because that's not the intent of the law. It's to get the money into a broad number of communities. So I just want to put that on there, that we had discussion that gets to your point, but you stated it much more succinctly, I think, than we were iterating in the moment.
All right, Councilmember Lilligren and then Chambliss.
Thank you, Chair. And to really reassure Councilmember Lindstrom, all Community Development Committee members, and all of our colleagues here, that's the intent, to have a clearly defined, transparent, and understandable plan. I've already been in discussions with senior community development staff about that, and then the committee will set the work plan for 2024, so we'll be able to touch that directly as well. And it's going to mean more work, right? And that's why it needs to be incorporated into an understandable and transparent work plan for our committee. And it may mean more work for committee members, because this is a new layer of, I think, direct involvement in, at least in my experience here, for this program. I know Councilmember Barber has experience, I'm guessing Councilmember Wolf as well. So just kind of putting committee members on notice, this might mean a little extra work. I don't know if this can be accomplished within committee meeting times, and we'll have to figure that out, but that is certainly the intent, or at least my intent as chair of the committee, is that it'll be a transparent and collaborative process.
Great. Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you. I'm glad that we have brought attention to what the issues are, but I think we need more clarity on what the issues are, because I don't know that for this body, we really understand what the issues are with the current LCA programs, the LCA and the TOD programs. So certainly when we do address this going forward, we have to understand what the purpose of LCA and TOD is and come to a clear understanding of that, because I think there's not a clear understanding, right, within this body, so that should be first. And also, if we are going to be reviewing some very technical criteria and scoring processes, we need to have a good facilitator for that process. And that should also include definitions that we need to be clear on. That doesn't mean that we all have to agree on them, but we need to be clear on what the intended statute is, our regional development guide related to these programs, and be able to facilitate through that in a way that gets us to a better place based on what is intended. So I don't think we want to kind of dig it apart, pick it apart, and say, okay, everybody has to agree. We don't have to agree. The statute should be clear. The regional development guide should be clear, and our job is to execute and implement policies and procedures and programs based on that. So I would hope that the facilitator would help us with that clarity.
Thank you. Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel a little bit like Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football, because a year ago, a bunch of you weren't here, but those of us that were here last year, we had this exact same conversation last year. And we amended it to say we'd have at least 2 public meetings that would go over the issues and stuff. And I envisioned that we would be communicating with cities and counties and, digging in the weeds. And then our 2 public meetings were work sessions where we talked about goals and feelings rather than fixing the problems with the program. So my concern is we keep promising, yeah, we're going to dig into this, we're going to dig into this. And we should not have a program where you have to pay somebody thousands of dollars to fill out the application. It should be straightforward and fair enough that you don't have to pay to play in the program or have so many years of experience writing it yourself to be a part of it. It should be based on the actual project, and it should be something that is accessible to everybody. And even at Metro Cities, their policies around livable communities are that it should have broad participation and broad eligibility throughout the region, so that there is support to keep going forward. Because if it's only a small part of Hennepin County and Ramsey County that ever get the grants, why are we doing it? It's not a regional program. And if we can't figure this out, then we should just, if we're not going to stop levying the money, turn it over to counties on a per capita basis and let them figure it out fairly, because then at least we'd have geographic balance, if nothing else. Because all of these counties are doing good projects, but we're not partnering with a lot of them because of our very difficult, very insider process of how to get to success in a grant. And it's not that the things that we're funding are bad projects, they're not. but other parts of the region are doing good things too, and we either partner with the whole region, or we need to stop saying that we are for the whole region. I am actually, I appreciate the effort of going forward from this, but I'm still gonna vote no, just because I'm so frustrated that we've been asking for so long, and I keep getting these assurances, oh, yeah, we're gonna work on it, we're gonna work on it, and we never actually work on it. It gets more and more imbalanced rather than balanced as a program. And I understand staff is frustrated. I'm not attacking staff. They don't maybe have the same relationships with some of the outer counties that some of us have as council members, and I'm happy to facilitate that. I'll go do a whole day in Dakota County and a whole nother day in Scott County if that gets us to a discussion where people really understand the whole region. I'll go to every single county. I'll take however many hours it needs to take, but it needs to be a fair and balanced program, and it's not right now.
Mr. Chair.
All right, for Councilmember Carter, did you have?
Thank you. I really appreciate that we have the motion on the table, that it's seconded, that we have the opportunity to move forward and vote on what I hope will be the continuation of this program into this year while we all engage. The frustrations that have existed, I am as frustrated, even though I wasn't here this year at the same time when you were discussing this, that this very important set of programs, which may not be the greatest contribution of dollars, but which are focused for us in ways that address our regional goals, is not something that we all can just say, yes. Is this
With the city of Vadnais Heights, and this is item 2024-27, and it requests that the council authorize our administrator to execute a cooperative construction agreement with the city of Vadnais Heights for the design and the construction of access improvements to one of our interceptors for an amount not to exceed $900,000. The city has proposed this joint project, and it intends to raise the grade between maintenance access structures so that vehicles can access this area. Both the city and MCES have some infrastructure in the area. And so both organizations would definitely benefit from this improvement and intend to split the costs 50-50. Therefore, Mr. Chair and members of the council, I move that the Met Council authorize its regional administrator to execute a cooperative construction agreement with the city of Vadnais Heights for the design and construction of access improvements to Interceptor 1-VH-422 for an amount not to exceed $900,000.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carried. Councilmember Lilligren.
Second item tonight.
Lindstrom, it was a mouth.
Did you pull the Lilligren move on us again?
I've been saying it so much
We've
recently.
never heard that one before, have we?
That's the first I made. Lindstrom.
There we go. All right. This is item 2024-28, and it requests that the council ratify the emergency declaration for repairs to Interceptor 7113 in Orono for an amount not to exceed $3,750,000. We've done some pipe inspections on several structures in this area of Orono, and it's revealed a fair amount of pipe wall loss due to corrosion. And the plan is to install a temporary conveyance to eliminate the risk while some consultants evaluate the condition, and to recommend rehabilitation or replacement of the pipe before any major failure occurs. Therefore, Mr. Chair and members of the council, I move that the council ratify the emergency declaration for repairs to Interceptor 7113 in Orono in an amount not to exceed $3,750,000.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carried. Councilmember Lindstrom.
Thank you. Next up, we have item 2024-29, and a request that the council authorize the regional administrator to award and execute contract 23P076 with Engineering and Construction and Innovations Incorporated to construct the Lake Elmo West connection in an amount not to exceed $28,795,749. This is an extension of our wastewater service provided by the Lake Elmo West Connection Project. It'll replace the local sanitary sewer. The extension is needed at this time to meet the wastewater capacity requirements for development in that area. We had an invitation for bids that was advertised in October, and we had 2 bids that ranged from $28 million to $31 million. Engineering and Construction Innovations, Inc. is the low, responsive, and responsible bidder and recommended for this award. Therefore, Mr. Chair and members of the council, I move that the Met Council authorize the regional administrator to award and execute contract 23P076 with Engineering and Construction Innovations Incorporated to construct the Lake Elmo West connection in an amount not to exceed $28,795,749.
Okay,
Down to the penny.
very exact. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
For the Lake Elmo.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carried. Councilmember Lindstrom.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Last up, we have one of my favorite grant programs, and that is the Water Efficiency Grant Program. This is item 2024-30, and it requests that the council approve the process for the 2024 through 2026 Water Efficiency Grant Program and authorize staff to advertise the availability of grant funding and solicit applications. The council will implement a water efficiency grant program effective July 1st this year to the summer of 2026, with the goal of to support technical and behavioral changes that improve municipal water use efficiency in the 7-county metro area. The primary grant activity is the replacement of older water-using devices with high-efficiency alternatives. The grants will be awarded on a competitive basis, with the Met Council providing 80% of the program costs, and the municipality must provide the remaining 20%. Grants will be made available in the amounts, the minimum of $5,000 and a maximum of $50,000. We have $1,100,000 available for this program, and the remaining $400,000 of this funding has been allocated to an equity-focused municipal water efficiency pilot program, which will be co-created with communities later this year. Therefore, Mr. Chair and members of the council, I move that the council approve business item 2024-30 on the process for the 2024 through 2026 Water Efficiency Grant Program, and authorize staff to advertise the availability of grant funding and solicit applications.
Second?
Great, thank you, thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carried. Thank you, Councilmember. Now, report from the Management Committee. Councilmember Johnson.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. No reports from management, unless you want me to come up with something.
I'm misreading it. I'm sorry, I had a typo. You were very busy, and I just
Well,
looked
no,
you
I
up.
knew, because I knew I
apologize.
didn't have anything on the agenda, so I'm moving along here, so. I can tell a joke, but I gotta be out of order.
I need one that doesn't have a typo. Oh, my God. I'm missing the bottom of a page. Excuse me. We have
Transportation has
no
an item.
reports from the Management Committee. There is a report from the Transportation Committee. Councilmember Barbie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And contrary to Councilmember Lindstrom having one of his favorite things, this is one of my least favorite things to do for the year, but I will nonetheless, we know we need to do this. So this is business item number 2024-34, same week. And we are seeking adoption of the annual 2024 safety performance targets, which are due February 27th. Federal regulations require the Metropolitan Council, as the region's metropolitan planning organization, to set achievable short-term targets to monitor progress on safety outcomes. There are 5 measures, both on the number of fatalities and serious injuries, the respective rates of these measures per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, a sub-measure of all pedestrian and bicycle fatalities and serious injuries. The Met Council uses its own methodology on a medium-term goal set in the Minnesota Strategic Highway Safety Plan. Targets reduced annually by a specific amount until targets match that medium targets in 2025. The target setting methodology is intended to be revisited in 2024 and 2025 to respond to an updated Minnesota Strategic Highway Safety Plan, the Transportation Policy Plan, Regional Safety Action Plan, and a pending rulemaking from the Federal Highway Administration. This method was set through a collaborative effort with safety experts around the region, and it is an aggressive target-setting methodology compared to most peer MPOs, which means our targets decline at a faster rate and set a more challenging standard than most others. This goal, or the long-term goal, is 0 deaths and serious injuries on our roadways, supported by the current 2024 Transportation Policy Plan and further advanced in the draft 2050 TPP. Regional safety performance has notably regressed during the COVID-19 pandemic. While fatalities in 2023 are slightly down from 2022, they remain elevated from pre-pandemic average. Serious injuries and non-motorized deaths and serious injuries remain elevated. A variety of factors contribute to this, notably increased by crash severity from speeding. Substantive safety work to reduce crash severity includes the Regional Safety Action Plan and its recommendations for regional funding partners. The Metropolitan Planning Organization's primary safety function is investing in safer infrastructure that is more forgiving when crashes happen. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I propose that the Metropolitan Council, or I move that the Metropolitan Council adopt the following 2024 annual targets for the roadway safety performance measures, which advance the long-term goal of 0 deaths. Number of fatalities, no more than 82. Fatal injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, no more than 0.29. Number of serious injuries, no more than 532. Serious injuries per 100 million VMT, no more than 1.89. And pedestrian bicycle fatalities and serious injuries of no more than 131.
Right. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carried. And now a joint report, which I believe, not sure who that belongs to.
Me.
Councilmember Lilligren.
Yeah.
I was going to say that once more. Councilmember Lilligren.
I thought you were going to call me Lindstrom.
No, well, that would have been fair.
Fair is fair.
You'd be so offended, huh?
Yeah, it does happen. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Community Development and Environment Committees jointly bring forward business item 2024-12. It's the City of Empire's 2040 Comprehensive Plan. In May of 2020, the council reviewed and authorized the 2040 Comprehensive Plan for Empire Township. In August of 2022, Empire Township incorporated into the City of Empire. As a newly incorporated city, Empire needs to formally adopt a 2040 Comprehensive Plan for the jurisdiction in its new formation. Empire is connected to the regional wastewater system, therefore this item was reviewed by both Community Development Committee and Environment Committee. The city is forecast to grow by 700 households and 220 jobs through 2040. The plan accommodates their forecasted growth through development and in the southwestern portion of their community. Our staff finds that the 2040 plan conforms to regional systems plans, is consistent with council policies with proposed changes to forecasts, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent and affected jurisdictions. So, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council adopt the attached advisory comments and review and take the following actions from Community Development Committee. Authorize the City of Empire to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect and advise the city to implement the advisory comments in the review record for water supply. And from the Environment Committee to approve the City of Empire's comprehensive sewer plan and advise the city to implement the advisory comments in the review record for wastewater.
Great. Is there a second? Thanks. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that action is passed. And now there are no information items. Is there any report from the interim regional administrator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing for me, no.
How about the general counsel?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would remind all of you, you have time to stop and get flowers on your way home. It is Valentine's Day. I think tulips are nice. I won't report anymore so they can.
They can get on to, it's important that we're ending early and enjoy a wonderful Valentine's Day. So that's, with that, I adjourn. Drive carefully if you're driving. It's snowing.